Hi, welcome to the small shed. This week on the Cyclekart I want to get some shape into the scuttle. See you in a minute. Now a couple of weeks ago I got the half round top of the scuttle sorted in front of the steering wheel, and that sort of forms a shroud over the instrument binnacle, and on the real thing there is then a raised part which comes in with a small fly screen to deflect grit and rubbish off the track from the driver. Now I want to get that shape into it, and that's where I'm starting to move into slightly difficult territory, because I don't work aluminium, and in an ideal world it is formed out of a hand beaten aluminium skin that's bent up. At the moment I've got a half round die bond, and that doesn't really lend itself very well to being shaped. So what I've got to do is effectively start and cut and slice it around and use a lot of body filler to get there, but I'm hoping it'll work out okay. We'll make a start on it and see how we get on. Just want to put some bends try and put some bends into this die bond, and I thought a bit of heat might help. I did try bending some the other day and it didn't take it very well. So I'm just going to put a straight line across it. Got my heat gun, and all I'm going to do is just warm it across that line and then probably just put a block of wood on top and just gently see if we can push it down. Have a look and see. Feels more promising. Yeah, that's going nicely. Don't know how far I'll get it to go, but I can definitely feel that it's plastic now rather than solid. Yeah, certainly for a slight curve on a bend I'm getting a better result with a bit of sustained heat. Right, so I'm just making a start on trimming up the scuttle to get that tidied up. I've made a mark where I'm going to cut all that weight out of it, and I've got to trim it lengthwise down to this line here. But I also want to do this sweep up detail on the that goes up to the windscreen, and I think what I'm going to do is use some of the existing material and just gently ease it up and bend it up for the sides, and then I can just stick on a piece of die bond on the front on the slope to what that slope will be, and then I hopefully can blend it all in with body filler and the like later, and that point there will be just in front of the screen line. So I'm just going to try and cut these lines with, probably try and use a Dremel or something, and then I can just see if I can get this to come up with a little bit of heat just to bend these upright. seems to have got me pretty close to where I want to be. A lot of this will be cut away when I get the raised front bit on. That's got to be cut and fitted to go to there. That gives me something that will hopefully fit the screen in now, in there. Probably a little bit more easy to do and a bit of messing around with the fixings, but I think we're well on the way with that. So next I'm going to take a piece of scrap die bond, put in place on the slope of this new cowl, and now I've got to scribe that shape into the bottom of that, so I'll just get a block of wood that's about the right sort of size. Let's have a look and see what we've got. Cut that out on the bandsaw, and we can just keep fettling it then until it's a nice snug fit onto that curve. Right, I've just cut a piece of die bond that's scribed pretty well now to that shape. So that, apart from the fact these corners should be more rounded, is pretty much the shape that I want. Now that rounding off there will be easy because I can just do that with filler and blend the two surfaces together. It'll be slightly harder with the corners on here because obviously the material's quite thin. But what I think I'll do with this is to get it all glued up and filleted inside with something fairly substantial, filler of some sort, and then I can curve this over with a file, and it doesn't matter if I go through the die bond and into the filler itself. So I'm quite happy with that. I'm just going to take this panel out now, I don't need it. And we're just about there then, I think. So the next step is to just clean all this up with a file, and then I'm going to go and fit it to the cart and then glue this piece on so that hopefully it gets it in the right position and everything's at the right sort of angles and there's no bending going on that is going to cause a problem later on. Give me a base to work on now for putting the filler in. It makes it quite rigid and solid. Now I want to get some glass fibre filler into this cowl before I start shaping it. So I want to get it firstly filled across there and smoothed in, ready to start and work that shape. But more importantly, inside across there to hold it all together, and on these corners so that I can then start and work away and sand that die bond away. That will eventually, I think, disappear on the corners as we start to get a curve on it, but there'll be plenty of glass fibre behind it that will keep it strong. So I'm going to use Isopon P40. It's, I think, got textures of glass fibre in it rather than the normal filler. I'll come on to the filler later on, but this is, hopefully, if I've got the right stuff, this is more for getting the strength in, and that's it. You can see it's almost like fibrous with the glass fibre strands in it. So I'm going to get a chunk of that, and I think it's normally a sort of the mixing proportions are normally like a golf ball to a pea in terms of filler to hardener. I'm using also old credit cards and National Trust cards and things. They're always useful for this sort of thing, in that they are totally disposable at the end of it. I think that's about there. Got the door open to keep the ventilation up. So let's start and get some of this inside. See how we get on with it. Really doesn't want to play ball, but so that's got a fairly big fillet on the corners. I can always come back and put more on later if I get close to sanding through, but that's got a bit inside anyway. You can see it's very difficult to get any sort of consistent finish on it because of all the fibres that are fighting you all the way. But there we go. Now we move on to the front part of the cowl as well then. Probably mix far too much up of this actually, but we will see afterwards. Once this is roughly right, I'm then going to go and put it back on the cart so that any distortion I've introduced into it by leaning on it will be corrected. Can feel it's already starting to go off, so I think my mixing proportions were about right, even if the quantities were a bit too large, but so we can sand it down later. Right, a couple of hours later, that's all gone hard now, so I can start and get that sanded down and round these edges over and get us somewhere where we need to be. Happy with that. Now I've been using this finger sander to work on the sanding down all this material, and I started to do that in the garage and it made a hell of a mess, so I've brought it down to our Menin Shed's shed today because it's much easier to clean up afterwards down here. I can just get a broom out or even do it outside, but this is the right tool I think for doing the job. So that's got the rough shaping done on the fiberglass filler. Really that now needs to go in for normal filler. There's probably a bit more sanding to do on the back of it, but I'm quite happy with it so far. What I'm going to do though, which is sort of jumping a step really, is to just bash a bit of primer on it. Mainly because it's quite difficult to see exactly what it really does look like when it's in this state. There's too many different finishes there that you can't quite see if the transitions are working right and if there's a bump or anything. So we'll move on to filler now for a bit and see if we can get some semblance of shape into things using the U-Pole Fantastic body filler I used on the moulds for the nose cone. Just give it a bit of a mix up because there's a bit of liquid on the top where it's settled out. And just get that mixed in. It's very hot today, so it's likely that it will go off quite quickly. So if anything, it's best to err on the side of less filler rather than less hardener rather than more. Right. It needs a bit on the sides and it needs it on the front of the cowl. I'll worry about the inside later on. Now I've just given it another coat of primer. It's not because it's anywhere near ready for it, but it's just so much easier to get a feel of what the thing will look like when it's got a decent coat of paint on it. When it's all uniform, it sort of starts to highlight areas where the shape isn't quite symmetrical. A little bit more filler on that corner perhaps, or to round that one off a bit more, things like that. But it gives me a rough idea and it shows me that I'm sort of heading in the right direction, and you've got an indicator of where, obviously, where your hollows are. But we're getting there slowly but surely. Same process, just keep sanding, filling, and keep going until we get to the end of it. Right, after about 4 lots of applying filler, sanding it, smoothing it, spraying it, checking it, finding the holes and so on, and then going back and doing it again. We're pretty much on the last knockings, I think. Now I've got the shape almost to where I want it. There's just a few minor holes that show up when you're sanding, or depressions that you haven't quite got the filler into, that just need a last very thin skim over. But we are pretty much there, I think, and after that we'll give it one more sand, just apply a little bit of primer, and then it'll be pretty much then ready for final coat. Just use the last bits up on the inside, which again is almost smooth, certainly good enough. There's not much of this will actually show because of the windscreen and the dashboard, but again it's just nice to get it smooth looking, like it's the inside of the aluminium. Right, so that's pretty much it now. It'll probably get a coat of primer filler before its final coat of gloss, if you like, in that there are probably minor scratches and that a filler primer will just take out, and you can block it down and get the whole thing dead smooth. But that is as close as I think I'm going to get it anyway, and I'm happy with that. That's the cowl done and ready to go and get all the screen and everything fitted, we'll deal with that another day. Right, so I've got pretty much as far as I can with that now. I think I've got what I'm happy with, and that's the right shaped piece. It's as near as damn it right now. There's a tiny little bit here and there of stuff that will be dealt with primer filler when I come to spray it, but other than that I'm quite happy with it. What it means is now I can start and bolt this back onto its former, get the pins in to get the screen fitted, and start and think about how I'm going to get the dashboard in. One of the problems I found when I was playing with it the other day was that it was difficult to get out of the cart if there was a dashboard in the way. Something I hadn't thought of, but it's where my knees go. So what I'm going to have to do is come up with some means of getting a dashboard in there, which is sort of like that, that will hinge up out the way when I come to get out of the cart, if you like. So all that can be dealt with now because we've actually got the shape bit ready to go in. So I hope the video is of interest. Look forward to seeing you next week when we'll be doing something different on the cart. Look forward to seeing you then. Bye.